Today, I'm talking with Daja. She speaks on her journey of a beautiful pregnancy experience in the height of 2020, which allowed her and her husband to turn inwards using their skills of yoga and the 8 limbs to create a sacred, connected, and flowing journey. Daja then goes on to speak to the gifts of breath that she gave to her child through the practice of meditation, which allowed her to create a space of ease and calmness when her daughter surprisingly emerged breech. I also want to mention that this is the first breech birth story to be featured on this podcast, and it's so lovely that no one knew until Daja's daughter's bum started to emerge. Daja credits the deep meditative and internal work that she did before and throughout her pregnancy journey to supporting her confidence and knowing that everything would be okay in her birth, even when her baby came into the world at 36 weeks. This is an incredible story of how tapping into innate and internal wisdom can be the best guiding light when navigating a pregnancy that ends in a surprise breech at 36 weeks. Hi, Daja. Welcome so much, and thank you for being a guest on this podcast. I'm really, really excited that you are a part of this movement today.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to get into the stories. I always just love jumping right in because, yeah, it's just so wonderful to hear. And I've got you here to speak. And the first question I want to ask you is, what is your ancestry and lineage that you're passing on to your children?
So my ancestry and lineage that I'm passing on to my daughter and to my bloodline is melanin. Melanin. And I just recently found out that my family is Cherokee from my maternal line. And that's been an interesting subject because I never really thought that I would get these answers due to a lot of the information being lost. But it's also a really loaded question because, the language is, it's hard to define who we are through these words. So I just like to identify as native to wherever I am, indigenous to wherever I am, because I come from this earth. So
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's nice that you got to figure out that part of your line. So that's really lovely. And that you can pass this on to your children as well. Or your child, you've just got a daughter at the moment. But anyway, so moving to the next question I'd like to ask you is, where does your motherhood journey begin?
Okay. So, well, to start, my zodiac sun sign is Cancer. And I've always had that maternal instinct, very nurturing and caring and loving just by nature. So I feel like I've always been tapped into there, but it really started at around 20 years old when I left my mom's home in Washington, D.C. and moved to South Florida, where I've been now for over 10 years. During that journey, I had to mother myself. I had to learn how to be responsible. I had to take care of myself. I had to mother myself through difficult times that I just found myself in, just being a young girl out here on my own. So I would say it really started there. And then fast forward to about 7 years, that's when I became pregnant with my daughter, Amala. And it wasn't a planned pregnancy per se, but it was very conscious conception. My husband looked me in my eyes and he said, let's do this, let's have a baby. And we went for it. And that was what the time that conceived her.
Oh, beautiful. And so going into that kind of conscious conception journey that you had when you found out that you were pregnant, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, did you take a pregnancy test? Did you just feel it in your body and you just knew that your baby had landed? How did that experience kind of go for you?
Yes. So like I said, it was conscious at first, but we really didn't have any hardcore proof that it was going to happen. So I'm awaiting my period, and I realized that it wasn't coming.
Mhm.
So I said, oh, I just had one laying around my house. And I just took the pregnancy test and I was like, oh my goodness, like,
Mhm.
wow, we're pregnant.
Mm.
And from there, it was a lot of excitement and a lot of nerve and a lot of just wow at the fact that um, we're bringing a being to this planet.
Mhm.
I, I get to be coming through, and that was so important to me because prior to becoming pregnant, I did a lot of work on my creative center, on my sacral center, because I felt blockages there. You know, I'm like on this journey moving to Florida, and I wanted to create something of my own. And, you know, so just diving into that type of work of clearing these blockages of what's holding up this creative process, or what kind of things do I need to face in order to bring something into fruition, like to finally get pregnant. It was just such a beautiful thing. So we were very, very excited, and the pregnancy was just a lot of good karma.
Mhm. Aw.
There was no morning sickness. There was there wasn't really anything hard about it besides, like, you know, just the sleep issues of, you know, just the weight on the body. But it was very, very um, effortless.
Mhm.
It was effortless and it was very beautiful. And also, we were pregnant in January of 2020, and about March of 2020, that's when the big shutdown happened.
Mhm.
So we got to spend a lot of time together. We're both yoga teachers, me and my husband. So we took the yoga world that we give out so much, and we really got to, you know, really submerge ourselves in our practice again,
Mhm.
and giving to ourselves again. And just practicing together at the beach together, cooking together, eating together, singing together, just having
Mhm.
so much fun during this process. And most importantly, just witnessing the magic of becoming.
Mhm.
So it was very beautiful. It was very beautiful. So the entire time I was pregnant, I I didn't go to a hospital. I never went to a doctor's office. I never had any sonograms,
Mm.
because I've always just had this idea of like my body knows what to do.
Mhm.
You know, and in the event where I was pregnant, I'm like, well, if I need technology, if I need a second opinion, if I need professional help, then I'll go and seek it out. But as long as everything feels in flow and feels good, then I'm just gonna witness it to the best of my ability. So
That's
that's what I
great.
did, and everything was fine.
Mhm.
so,
Can I just ask
so
quickly, because you chose to not seek any medical attention unless you felt the need to do it, was there any fear coming from your husband, or was he just like, "Yeah, that's great. You know, we live this beautiful life. You know your body. I trust you to know if something needs to be looked at," or was he kind of like, "Maybe we should get things checked out?" How did that go between the two of you?
you know, he was very supportive of it all.
Mhm.
He's just as crazy as me, so he
Yeah.
was made for this.
Yeah.
So that was very confirming,
Mhm.
um, to have him not question, you
Mhm.
know, what I was bringing to him. He was just
Mhm.
on board with it. He did ask one time, later in the pregnancy, he's like, "All right, so are we gonna get a doula or midwife or something? Do you want them to be here?" And I said no, and he never asked again.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, there were no complications. We ate really clean and healthy, and I didn't take any prenatal vitamins from like the store or capsules or anything like that. I just did my research and
Mhm.
made sure that whatever I was eating was providing those vitamins and minerals and nutrients to sustain me and baby
Mhm.
throughout this journey.
Mhm.
So I was having sea moss smoothies, sea moss tea, sea moss in my soup, you know,
Nice.
juices, smoothies, and just, you know, having those cheat meals, if you say, if you will, you know, to just keep things balanced. And
Mm-hmm.
everything was good with that. There was no heartburn, none of that. So I consider it to be a very easy and well pregnancy, and I would not have wanted anyone to interfere with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now there was a bit of fear from my family,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because I think it was a lack of understanding. You know, no one else has experienced this before. um, with the women in my family. My grandmother, all of her babies, her three kids were cesareans. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so um, and my mom, she has three kids, and she pushed them all out, but all with epidural and just kind of numbing to
Mm-hmm.
the process. So when it came to me, they were like, what are you doing? And like, you don't have to be that weird.
Yeah.
So, but you know, but I just kind of, you know, held a boundary where it's like, you know, I know that this is how how they're showing that they care. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want to ruin it for them, but I also just knew I needed to keep that protective bubble around me because my mind was already made up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was that.
Wow. Well, it sounds like, all the work that you had done through preconception of connecting to your creativity, connecting to your sacral center and everything really opened you up a lot more to tapping into that intuition and that innate knowledge, that you have in yourself. So you could be so self-assured with all of the choices and decisions that you made throughout your pregnancy journey. And that's so beautiful. It's so lovely to hear that you did the work, not necessarily because well, maybe like you were doing this
Mm.
work to bring that healing and that love to your womb space so that it could, bring in that the divine creation, which is bringing in a baby, and then having the opportunity. I feel like the whole shutdowns of 2020 for a lot of people
Mhm.
was actually quite good because it gave you and your husband the opportunity to really get connected, and as you said, turn inwards with the work you had already been doing, the yoga teaching outward. You got to both focus together on this journey and bring this baby in and grow and nurture this baby together, whereas most, people, most families, the mother is still working until week 38 and the husband is still,
Mhm.
working the full-time job until the day the baby's born, and they don't really have that connection aspect where they can really enjoy what's actually happening. So it's so nice that you got
Yes.
that, all of that. That's really
So
beautiful.
let's talk about this phrase, doing the work. You
Mm,
know, because we throw it out there all the time, but pregnancy is is just one opportunity you don't want to run away from doing the work, because
mhm.
we become so sensitive. You
Yeah.
know, like, that sensitivity is not to piss people off, not to get on your man's nerve, not to just be a baby about
Mhm.
anything. It's, you have the ability to feel even that which may be dormant
Mhm.
inside. So
Yeah.
that was the work for me, was to cultivate this trust of the unknown, to cultivate the knowing of who I truly am,
Mhm.
you know, to make peace with death.
Yeah.
You know, like, looking at that with clarity is just like mind blowing.
Mhm.
You know, so it really just helped me open up my heart
Mhm.
to, in ways that I really didn't even know were possible, in ways that your mind can't even fully comprehend. You just have to be there.
Mhm.
So the work was really going into those shadows, those corners, and those nooks and crannies that we like to stuff things in, and
Mhm.
to really start to bring it out, because otherwise we end up birthing it. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm like, all right, let's just see what's here, because that's what I was already doing anyway on this whole yoga journey and all this, you know, moving away from home. That's what I was really doing, was just like, who is underneath all of these things? You know, who am I? You know,
Mhm.
it's that journey of who am I? So yeah, the work was very interesting. It was messy. It
Mhm.
wasn't cute at all. You know, it's like, okay, just learning about our desires, learning about these thought patterns, because my whole thing of becoming pregnant, when that conception happens, you have the light of the masculine, which is thought, and
Mm.
then you have the feeling or the vibration, which is that feminine. So
Mhm.
it's like, what did we just bring together here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm really interested in going deep into. So that's what we explored. And it was, in hindsight, it was messy, but now where we are today with my daughter being almost 3,
Mhm.
I'm just like, thank God we did it. Like, thank you for doing the work with me, and we continue to do it. So
Mhm.
yeah, so the pregnancy was just flawless. It was beautiful. So we did end up having her from my calculations, because from that conception date, we had her at about 36 weeks,
Mhm.
which, at the hospital, that would have been a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And so it was 9 months on the nose when I realized my water had um, ruptured. So I'm like, and what's up with my pelvic floor? Can I not hold this pee in anymore? It was like maybe 5 a.m. in the morning. So I'm going to the bathroom constantly, and it's just a slow trickle. And I'm like, maybe it's not my water, but my intuition is telling me like, yo, this is it. This is not pee.
Mhm.
So, I'm still kind of like in doubt a little bit. So I wake up and I walk across the street to the beach, and I'm just like, okay, if this is it, just really preparing myself to really enter this portal. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, if this is it, let me just clear my mind. God, goddesses, universe, whoever, like, please just protect me, because I'm really surrendering to this process. And if I need to be used as an example for anything, here I am. Like,
Mhm.
use me. I'm giving it my all,
Mhm.
just completely getting out of my own way. So that was like my little prayer moment. Just sitting with the waters, and the waters were so calm this day. Um, the sunrise had just started to set. It was a very beautiful, serene
Mhm.
rising. So then I go back to the house, and I'm telling my husband, I'm like, I think this is it. And he's like, no way, this could be it. He was like, I thought we had like another 4 weeks or something. And I'm like, no, this is it. But it was slow. This was, I guess you would term it as a pre-rupture of membrane, because my labor didn't actually start.
Right.
Um, it was just like my waters had started to come through. So
Mhm.
I give my mom a call, who's in DC, and I'm just like, hey mom, I think this is it. And it's about 7 a.m. in the rising. And she's like, oh, I'm on my way. And she was not supposed to be at the birth. Like, I was not inviting her to the birth, because I didn't think she would be able to hold the space from her views, or just how she handled, the information I gave her with how I wanted to go on about this.
Mhm.
So I just was calling her just to, let her know that maybe this would be happening. This woman jumped on a plane and arrived at my house. She got there maybe around around 9 p.m. We picked her up from the airport, and still everything was really calm at this point.
Mhm.
Um, we got to clean the house, we got to do all of these things. We did a photo shoot. We ate good. We laughed. Some of the women from the community, our yoga community in our neighborhood, just came over and brought herbs and just, loved up on me and just helped
Mhm.
me prepare
Mhm.
um, for everything, which was so beautiful. It was very beautiful. I never really felt community until that moment.
Oh, that's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, so that was a highlight. And so fast forward to just settling in that evening. We went to bed maybe around 10 o'clock, and around 1 a.m., that's when I felt like the big contraction, like,
Mhm.
whoa, this is it.
Mhm.
So I got out of the bed, and I'm like, babe, turn on the hose, fill up the pool. This is it. And something just told me to like go with it, just go with it. Just keep your eyes closed, actually, throughout this
Mhm.
process. So that's how I journeyed through labor. I just kept my eyes closed. I went from, maybe the pool to the toilet, and, to the bed. And honestly, it was a psychedelic experience. It
Mhm.
was so trippy. I was out of this world. and it started in this world where the physical sensations were just very powerful and sensational.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, all right, so one of the eight limbs of yoga, one of them, the fifth limb, is pratyahara.
Yeah.
And pratyahara means to withdraw from your senses, but I like to translate it as going beyond your senses. So I just layered through. I went through the physical, and then I started to hit the metaphysical, and then I started to hit way beyond
Mm-hmm.
metaphysical to where it really was like that journeying of going up this mountain and then reaching the cosmos to receive
Mm-hmm.
um this divine spirit that's coming through, which was my baby.
Wow.
um and then finally, it was so trippy, it was trippy. So finally, I'm coming back to earth a little bit, and I just remember hearing me moaning, and it was like a love making. I'm like, why do I feel like this is, like just giving
Mm-hmm.
that sexual energy to it. Um, and not that that's weird or anything, because it makes sense. Like that it's an orgasmic experience. It's a sexual experience.
Yeah, it's the
So I just
same
allow myself
hormones.
to, exactly. So I
Mm-hmm.
I embraced it, and
Mm-hmm.
it helped me. It helped to soothe me. It gave me something to rely on, like my breath and just the movement of my hips, to focus on while everything was opening.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have my mom on one side of the pool, and I have my husband inside of the pool with me. And they were holding space so well. My mom actually did so well, better than I expected.
Wow.
So then finally, baby started to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And, Frankie, my husband, he's like, okay, the head is coming. He doesn't know what he's seeing down there. He's just like, okay, the head is coming. And like, okay, we're making some progress finally. And then my mom looks and she's like, excuse me, guys, that's not the head, that's the butt. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm having a breech baby.
Wow. I love that.
so so that was just like a moment where I'm so glad it was in that moment where I found out, because that could
Mm-hmm.
have changed the whole sequence of events.
Mm-hmm.
um Maybe I would have been more concerned and went to a hospital and had the professional opinions and all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but dealing with it in a moment, it just activated me.
Wow.
So I I grabbed hold to my my rectum and I just started to put the pressure there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, I got to stand up. So Frankie, he's like, all right, baby, get into goddess pose. And goddess pose is that squat where you're standing up, but um, you see it a lot on the Egyptian hieroglyphs, where
Mm-hmm.
there's two people on either side of the woman holding her up while she's able to bear down. So I got into that position, and it took her a while for her head to come out. And I was a little nervous here. This is where I'm just like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Why would I do this? Because
Mm-hmm.
it was a long time. And so connecting back to COVID and everything,
Mm-hmm.
COVID obviously was a war on our breath, on our spirit. So
Mm-hmm.
when I would sit down in meditation during my pregnancy, I'm just like, I would just breathe all of my prana to my baby.
Yeah.
I'm like just visualizing her just receiving this prana. I'm like making deposits in her pranic account, in her
Mm-hmm.
reserve. And at that moment where I thought she was compromised with her head being stuck in the canal for a while, maybe like 8 minutes, which felt like forever.
Yeah.
When she came out, she was fine. She had her color, she had, movement, she was
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought back to meditating being pregnant, and I'm like, that was that pranic reserve. She is wealthy.
Yes,
She is wealthy with breath
absolutely.
and life. Yeah, so that was just like a major connection there.
Mm.
And then I received her in my arms, and we were just so happy because the room was very quiet,
Mhm.
just waiting for her to finish coming through.
Mhm.
So when she finally came out, my mom and Frankie was just like, "Yay!" The whole room rejoiced, and I received her. I sat back and just was so at ease, and
Yeah.
just honestly, it was another shadow moment that came up for me when I finally received her. It was like, well, here's the journey.
Mhm.
Here's the detachment journey,
Mhm.
where she's every day now, she's moving and growing further and further away from me, from
Right.
starting within my body to a feeling that I just once had, to
Mhm.
now carrying her in my body, to now just releasing her from my body. It was like, it was bittersweet, it was like,
Mhm.
she's her own being, she's her own person, she's her own body,
Mhm.
so that was a very interesting thing that had hit me during that point. So yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, yeah, that's so amazing, and I'm so happy to hear of this beautiful connected, preconception pregnancy journey that you cultivated before giving birth, and that allowed you to trust yourself so much because, if you were working with a medical midwife or with an OB in a hospital and your baby started to come at 36 weeks, there's red flag number one. You would have had a very increased medicalized birth because your baby would have been quote unquote premature, too early. And then on top of that, having a baby that presented breech would again have sounded the alarms and made like everybody lose their shit because they'd be like, oh my God, it's a 36-week baby and it's breech now. Like the whole world's gonna explode because this woman doesn't know how to have a baby like this. But you did, like you were saying before, you did the work and you did sat there with that pranic meditation and gave that to your child. Like that was such a gift because you were able to be in that experience and feel it and breathe through it and know that everything would be okay no matter the outcome. It didn't matter that your baby was 36 weeks. It didn't matter that your baby presented breech. You just had that innate divine trust in what was meant to happen in your body, and you followed through. And then your baby came and she was fine and you had that connection. So I just want to stress how important, or yeah, how important it is to really trust those feelings in yourselves as a woman, and how important it is to do that work, because if you hadn't have done that work, who knows what would have happened, and it could have been a multitude of different outcomes for this birth, but having the outcome that you had just goes to show how amazing it is that if you trust in yourself, and this is the knowledge that is being taken from women when they have births in the medical system, to not trust themselves, to not give, sit in deep meditation, taking that pranic breath, really connecting into the baby that's in their womb, that's being taken away. This innate primal energy that you totally tapped into in your birth experience, your birth journey, is just so beautiful, and it was so wonderfully highlighted in the way that your baby came through, and everything that happened was just like, wow, that's so amazing. It's just so wonderful to hear this story, and especially that it was a surprise breech at 36, which in the medical world would be such a, oh my God, this is an emergency. We've got to get her in the hospital, cut the baby out, give her all the drugs
Mhm.
and all these things to completely ruin the
Waters
situation.
were open for 24 hours.
Yes, exactly. Like your birth could have been very, very, it could have been a very traumatic experience. It could have been ruined in a lot of
Hijacked.
ways, but you just trusted yourself as a woman, as a mother. You trusted your baby, and you had beautiful support from your husband and your mom. And it just, like, that's why I love having this
Mm.
space for women like you to share these stories, because these are the stories that need to be talked about, because this is how birth is meant to be, and it really needs to be highlighted that it can be fine. You can tap into that sexual creative energy throughout that birth experience and throughout your birth process and really work with that in order to bring your baby through. So I absolutely love that. It's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. So, I want to highlight this 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 buzzword sovereignty, because that's what I like to term, if I were to put any stamp on this experience, it would be sovereign birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to shout out to Ashley. You interviewed her, I think maybe on the second episode, and that was such a lovely interview. And she came packed with gems. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love that interview. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, she
But
was the
just to
first.
speak on, oh yeah, that was
Mhm.
it. That was fire. So to speak on sovereignty, my gosh, like a lot of women ask, like, well, how did you get a birth certificate? Or how, what is she going to do? How are you going to register your baby? And I'm like,
Mm,
I'm not, I'm not going to do any of that. So that was another breaking free moment of just rebelling against the system.
mhm,
And, from doing the pregnancy the way that we did, from doing the birth, and moving along in the life that we have now, and
mhm,
just taking control, or just taking responsibility of our life. Like, who
mhm,
else is going to care for you better than yourself and the people
mm,
who birth you?
exactly.
So sovereignty is a very, very, very big subject. And I feel like we should really dive deeper into it. Um, Even though it's a buzzword, we should really get down to the roots of it, because it brings about so much freedom.
Mhm,
And one of my mantras during my pregnancy was, this is my responsibility.
mhm,
And my responsibility is to have the ability to respond.
mm,
That's it. I didn't want to be reactive of
mhm,
anything. I really wanted to feel everything and be present with it all. And I'm like, that's my sovereign right. Not because someone has to give me the approval. It's because
mhm,
I say so.
mhm,
So it's
exactly.
like feeling like so scared of the system to have your baby at home, or so scared to not register them, or so scared to do these things. It's like I honestly didn't feel any of that, and I still
Mhm,
don't.
mhm,
So I'm like, we're doing such big work as women, and
mhm,
we cannot wait for the permission of the system. We cannot wait for the permission of our parents. We cannot wait for the permission of anyone to say it's okay. We really have to pave this road ourselves. So that's
mhm,
why I went into birth work even after having her. I'm like, all right, this is obviously like a
mhm.
duty.
Yeah.
This is obviously an obligation that I have to do. So I went to study to be a doula, and then I went into studying midwifery and birth keeping with the matrona.
Mm,
I
mhm,
found the best midwife I could in our area. And I started working with her as her assistant, and,
wow.
attended over 30 births of all people in my community, people who I met here through yoga, and we
Mm,
just started to grow up together. And it's
mm,
just such a beautiful thing when women stick together,
exactly.
and when we share our stories, and see that our stories aren't just ours. Like,
Mhm,
this is all of us.
mhm,
We're literally connected through this womb space.
yeah.
So I just feel so good about, the trajectory where we're headed, and
Mhm,
the amount of awakening that's happening through these wombs.
yeah.
It's so exciting. It's so
Yeah,
exciting.
it's amazing, and sovereignty is our birthright for every single person, and it is, up to us women to claim that sovereignty, especially as we become mothers, especially
Mm.
as we become pregnant and as we go into our birth journeys, because this is the way, like you said, that we are connected with the women throughout the magic of the womb. And, we're not going to get any more healing if one woman doesn't have that. We have
Mhm.
to do this together. We have to
Mhm.
do this as like a united front of women bringing these babies through, standing in our sovereignty, in our power. And yeah, it is. It's so important for the collective and for our generations. or pardon, for the next generations that we are birthing into this world. So they already know, like your child, your daughter is already going to know that she is a sovereign being now because she was born into that. She was born into the arms of a mother and a father that have claimed that already,
Yeah.
which is such a gift. It's such a
Mhm.
beautiful gift. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so more about the birth,
Mm,
or the postpartum period, we also allowed her to stay connected to her placenta.
mm.
Um, it fell off maybe about 3 days afterwards, which was a whole nother rites of passage in itself.
Yes, yes, what is
I'm like, I
birth?
was so protective over her.
Mm-hmm.
It brought up, it even brought up, some shadow things between my mom and I,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want anyone to hold her. I felt like she was so vulnerable and being connected to the core. I just was like, no one can hold her. Like, she just
Mm-hmm.
keep her with me. And and everyone felt some type of way because everyone wants to hold the baby.
Yeah.
Like, you're not letting me be a grandma. And I'm just like, you just being here,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
but it just brought up some things because she showed up for my sisters during their birth in other ways, which the father should have, so
Right.
she was, I think she kind of maybe expected to show up and do the same as she previously known. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was just so much to work through.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that birth, not only did it change my life, it changed my mom's life, my
Mm-hmm.
husband's life, my
Mm-hmm.
sister's life.
Mm-hmm.
It lets everyone know the impossible is really possible.
Yeah, totally. You're the center of the web, the center of the
Mm,
spiral, and then your action in that birth experience just continues to ripple
yeah.
out forwards and backwards, which is so amazing.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
um, yeah, beautiful experience and journey.
How
with,
was
with
your breastfeeding journey with your daughter?
Oh, we're still breastfeeding.
Mhm.
But she'll be 3 in August, and we're still going.
Yeah.
Um,
Was it
it was
easy for
great.
you in the beginning? Like no
No.
problems, or did you have to navigate some things?
Yeah, yeah. So it was learning how. So breastfeeding did not come easy. It was challenging. I used like a little nipple shield for maybe a month or two, and
Mhm.
I just really couldn't relax. Um, because I'm just uptight and high strung about having this new baby and what to do and
Mhm.
how to take care of it. And we all know that stress and breastfeeding just don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, just navigating those new terrains just brought up a lot of tension around me. So it wasn't until I learned how to relax that it came a little bit easier,
Mhm.
um, to just dance and flow with her.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it did come a little rough, but once we got through that hump, it was seamless after that.
Oh, wonderful. And I
Yeah.
love that you're still breastfeeding her and she's almost
Mhm.
3. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the breast milk, oh my gosh, like it's it just reminds me to slow down, when it's time for a feeding or where she bumps herself and needs attention and comfort, that I can just be in a place of presence with her.
Mhm.
And that's our meditation too, because obviously my yoga practice have changed a lot since becoming pregnant and having a baby. I can't spend 3 hours in a hot room anymore.
Yeah.
My yoga is making sure my posture is upright when I'm nursing her, when I'm
Mhm.
holding her, to meditate and send her loving thoughts and healing and just awareness through my milk when I'm nervous. That's what I do still to this day. And my
Mhm.
husband always makes a joke, when I'm putting her down to bed, he'll say, "All right, see you later," because he knows I'm gonna fall asleep with her too, because I get so relaxed. I'm just knocked out after that.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love breastfeeding, even though it's slowing down these days. I'm
Mhm.
really still just honing in on all of the love and and ease that it brings into my life and those moments and connections and connection that I get to have with her,
Mhm.
because we don't get this time back. So I'm here for it. I'm not
Exactly.
trying to wean her or any of that. I'm just like, it'll all happen as it should be.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. I
Mhm.
love that. Oh, wow. Is there anything else within this really amazing, beautiful story that you would like to share about your pregnancy, birth, postpartum experiences?
Hmm. Postpartum, yes. The first 40 days
Mm,
was not something I knew about until after I had birth. And it's a part of, my husband actually brought it to me. Um, he said, "Oh, this is a practice that's in yoga. Like maybe we should look into this." So I'm like, "Wow, this sounds very up, our alley." So
mhm,
the first 40 days were crucial, and it just was like that permission to slow down and to just let it be new.
mhm,
Like I don't have to know. Like I'm getting to know this being. I'm getting to know my husband as a father. I'm getting to know myself as a mother.
mm,
So the first 40 days just allowed the time for me to be a rookie,
mhm,
for everybody to be a rookie, and for us to create the rhythm and flow of our current life. To choose how we want to show up as parents.
mhm,
That yeah, the 40 days really set the grounds for that, and to be exclusive with our energy. Like the baby's auric field is very much new and vulnerable. The crown is so open, and
mhm,
we just didn't want anyone or any environment to make an impression upon her. So
yeah.
it was very immersive in nature, and just making our home new to just invite her in, and to make space for her to feel at home. And it was very beautiful. It brought us closer. It brought us closer together
Mhm,
than before, for sure. So yeah, the postpartum phase is crucial, because we just focus on like the big event of having a baby, and like we don't realize that the mom is also a newborn, the
mhm,
father is also a newborn, and we need
yes.
to be gentle with ourselves, otherwise it can down spiral real
Mhm,
fast. And this is where the resentment is built if we're not handling it properly, and this is where a lot of the shadows and a lot of the grief comes up too, of grieving the
mhm,
old self. So it's such a vulnerable time,
mhm,
that new moon phase of
yeah.
of life, just to be gentle while we're waxing up to this to a mature mother or being.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, shout out to the postpartum phase, because it is not for the weak.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
some
Oh,
some of
sorry.
my I wrote like a list of postpartum
Mm,
P's. So things that start with the letter P, and that was like present. So just to be present.
mhm,
Peace, just invite peace in. Posture, to make sure my posture was correct and upright. And I forget the rest, but just to focus on these things,
mhm,
to just keep my mind in alignment while going through the murky waters of postpartum.
mhm. Wow, that's so beautiful. Yeah, and it's true. Lots of people plan in the pregnancy and for the birth, but they often forget that postpartum is the integration of that big initiation stage. And like you said, the mother is reborn just as that baby is reborn, the father is born. So you really do need that time, 40 days or more, to allow everybody to integrate cohesively into that nice family unit. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so happy you got that.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Um, One more thing I would like to mention, just to anyone who is embarking on the journey of motherhood and pregnancy, to, we know that pregnancy and birth is a rites of passage.
Hmm.
And something that has shifted my perspective is to not worry about the outcome of the birth, just prepare yourself to go through whatever you have to go through, you know, because the outcome is going to be, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we prepare ourselves to just pretty much get annihilated, like prepare yourself to get annihilated.
Yes, absolutely.
Like no need to even sugarcoat it. And it's like whatever doesn't remain, it's not meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever comes out on the other side is your gifts. It's for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, just focus on preparing yourself and just be present with it.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for those beautiful words. That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. Well, I want to ask you before we wrap up then, if anyone wanted to get in contact with you to speak to you directly one-on-one, how would they reach out to you if you want to share any info?
Awesome. You can find me on Instagram at Goddess Daja, Daja. On Instagram, you can send me a DM. I love, love, love to connect with women on any topic. And you can email me at Daja, Daja.yoga, YOGA @gmail.com. If you want to find me there too.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm just so grateful that you shared this birth story. Like I said, 36-week baby that was surprise breech. These stories need to be heard. So I'm so grateful that you shared this with us and with me and put it in the Free Birthing in Color movement, because it's so important that your words are heard. So I'm really, really grateful. Thank you so much, Daja.
Thank you. And you keep up the good work.
Thank you, sisters, so much for listening to this episode of the Free Birthing in Color podcast. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one in a primal activation session, donate to the podcast, or to have your story featured here or in the blog, go to primalwomanportal.com for all the information to do so. Did you want to connect with our guest speaker? You can find all her information linked within the show notes. And if you have time, please subscribe, write a review, and tell a friend to have a listen so that this podcast and these stories of women birthing in their total power can be shared far and wide. Don't forget to check out the show notes for information on the Earth Daughters Women's Festival, the Breech Without Borders workshop, and much more. New episodes drop every Thursday morning, so stay tuned for the next amazing story to be shared on any platform that you prefer to listen to your podcasts on, or watch these episodes on the Free Birthing in Color YouTube page. And remember, your voice and your story matters. So if you're a woman of color or an Indigenous woman who's had a wild pregnancy and or birth outside of the medical system, submit your story, because it's so important that your voice is heard and celebrated in your radical journey of pregnancy, birth, and motherhood.